Hi, I'm Ariel Grossman, the Artistic Director of Ariel Rivka Dance. Thank you so much for joining us for this Mother's Day special. Um, I became a mother a little over 6 years ago when Eva was born. And again, the second wave when Max was born a little over 3 years ago. And I'm joined here with Hannah and Stefania and Giselle, who are also board members as well as other roles at Ariel Rivka Dance. And I'm going to have them each introduce themselves and tell you how they are mothers. So, Hannah, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Thanks, Ariel. So I wear many hats in ARD. I'm the senior most dancer. I do some rehearsal directing. Love being on the board, and I also do some executive consulting for the company. So very happy to be involved with this organization. I have three boys, four if you count my husband. Warren is 3. And Arlen and Zahavi are 2-week-old newborn identical twins.
Oof.
Thanks, Hannah. Let's go to Stefania.
Hi, I'm Stefania De Kennedy, and I'm a composer. I sit on the ARD board, but I have two quote unquote children, although my fertilized eggs are now fully grown. And I have a boy who's 29 and a girl who's 31.
So I'm Giselle Huron. I am president of the ARD board. I'm so happy and proud to work with this group of people. I have two girls. Mila is 6.5 years old in first grade, and Lanai is 4 years old, going on 15.
And Giselle also has a full-time job.
I'm a lawyer at Google, and I head up Google's anti-counterfeit team. So we've been very busy lately with that, and then a little bit of homeschooling thrown in there as well.
Yes, we are now forced into being teachers as well. Well, I am a teacher, but as I was saying to someone yesterday, teaching your child is very different than teaching other people's children. To dive right into the topic of motherhood, when we decided to do this open conversation to celebrate Mother's Day, we really started thinking like, well, are we going to be talking about what it's like to be a mother before Corona or during Corona or after Corona? And I really feel like, I can't even think about or remember what it's like to be a parent beforehand because we're so thrown into the present right now. But I do think a lot of the struggles are the same. They're just intensified.
Yep.
And I think, I'll just start for myself. The ability to have time and space where children aren't has been a huge thing for me, and I think really allows my creativity to flow. And school is amazing, 8:30 to 3, like they're gone and they're not. I don't have to worry about them. And I feel like something that I really struggle with is that when I know that I'm on, there's that constant like, okay, when are they going to need me? When are they going to need me? And if they're in school, I feel like I can breathe and have some space. So that's been something I've really struggled with since being home.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the hardest parts of the teaching part, I am not a teacher, and I don't think I would be described as necessarily having the patience of a teacher. And I'm so thankful to for what our teachers do. But it has made it very clear to us that just sort of trying to recreate whatever the normal was before just isn't working in what we're doing now. And so, we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out like what is really important to us that we give our kids, and even in the context of the arts and dance, it's very clear in these moments and in this little box of sky that we're in, that it's not what theater they're in, it's not what show they're in, it's the feeling that they have when they experience art and they engage in art that we need to recreate somehow. And we have to do it a little differently, and we have to be a little creative, and we have to be a little virtual or whatever it is. But, for us, we have to stop and say, this is a priority. It's not just getting through the day and finishing the math assignments. It's not just making sure we get toilet paper. It's also like, how do we remember that we are emotional and artistic beings and continue to make that important for our kids? And so I think that's probably been one of our biggest struggles during this time.
Just to finish that thought a little bit, yesterday, every Tuesday and Friday, we've been having company class, and yesterday Noam was in the house during company class, and I was really able to like be in a space where I could move a lot more. And I just felt, I was realizing like being able to move and be artistic helps me process so much, and how, you know, our children are doing that most of their days at school, depending on their age, of course. But also being inspired by others' artistry. And when Eva watches videos of Ariel Rivka dance, like she tries to do it. Specifically, music and movement, I think, provide an outlet for young children and humans that is so needed right now, because we're all sort of like, what's going to happen? And like being able to do plies and like move my arms, like really brought some air and space into my body.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting watching Oren. You know, he has his online school class, which of course is a lot of music and art activities. And then, you know, usually he does take baby gym and baby ballet and all those classes. And the studios are offering sort of pre-recorded classes. They're offering live classes. You know, there are these different experiences, but what it's really brought home to me is that the important part of these classes for Oren has really been the personal interaction. Mm-hmm. So even when it's a live class, but we have to turn our microphone off, you know, he's not really connecting to the expression in the same way. The activity is the same way, because you can't interact personally with the teacher. And so I think, you know, it brought home for me the fact that, you know, what we're all doing through these arts and really communicating, really connecting, you know, in this time when we're having to do this through screens, you know, how can we get back to that visceral connection that the arts brings, you know, that you see is so innate in like a 3-year-old dancing around in the living room? You know, how can we do that with our work and what we're doing with the company?
Yeah. I totally agree with you with the connection. You know, we have all these online versions of the classes we were doing before, and you know, you can really tell, even classes that maybe weren't their favorite before, the idea that somebody is going to call out their name and say, hey, everybody, like, what's Mila doing right now? Look at Lanai's leg in her arabesque. And like, maybe the thing she's doing isn't important to her, but her face just lights up knowing that in this community, people are experiencing the same thing that she is, and they're appreciating it in a way that she doesn't feel the rest of the time looking at a, you know, asynchronous screen or whatever else.
I want to ask, because I feel like, Stefania, you're probably the most successful at this point, because you have 2 children who have graduated college. Balancing your career, because she's not only a composer, but you're a professor, and you've, you know, been extremely successful and acclaimed in your field. You know, how you balance that with being a mother. And I know for me at least, it's not just the time that you spend with them, but the mental energy that goes into thinking about them and what they're doing and what they're going to do and what they need. And I'm curious how you have balanced that, and also how that works now that they're older and you're not like taking care of them during this crazy time.
It's a lot easier when they're out of the house. But I would say for me, the key to being a mother is that you are not only a mother, but a workhorse. So you work all the time, every day, every hour of the day. There is no such thing as downtime. And I don't know any other way to do it, frankly, if you also want to be a mother and a career woman and expressive and artistic. Is just, you know, every minute of every day counts. Having said that, I always had some form of assistance, because for me, my creative work has to happen in blocks of time. So if I don't have a chunk of time that I can write, just go into my own space, my own zone, I really can't be creative in half-hour spurts. So just because a kid goes off and has a 45-minute lesson, it doesn't mean I can go back to my string quartet or my dance piece. It's just not enough. So you need some kind of setup where you have 3 or 4 hours chunks of time. And that for me has always been crucial to getting anything done. And school helps with that. Having an office helps with that, so and for everybody, the setup is different. But for me, the parameters were always very, very clear. I had to have a decent night's sleep. If I haven't gotten 6-7 hours of sleep, I'm toast the next day. And if I don't have a good 3 or 4 hour chunk of time to work, I also can't be creative. And how you juggle that is quite difficult. It's not that easy to do, but it's what I struggled with all my life. And there were different points in the kids' lives, different ways of coping. But it makes a difference.
As a fellow mom, I know one of the struggles is to not feel guilty for accepting help, or to not feel embarrassed for allowing a nanny to play a really major role in helping raise your children, or allowing somebody to really help take the reins on even your philosophy of parenting, or to be a part of those decisions. And so I think it's really wonderful to hear that someone who is a very successful mom, has a wonderful relationship with her successful grown children, really made that choice to prioritize your work and prioritize what you needed to be passionate and creative, and that, there's really no shame in accepting help, that actually, make the times that you are being a mom better, and it makes your creative time more productive, and it can sort of really help the flow of all of those things coming together.
No, I totally agree with that. And for me, I always felt if I were not a composer, if I were consigned to just being a mother and couldn't also be a composer, it would diminish me as a person. And they wouldn't get the best mom they could, because part of me is expressive and emotional and musical. And if that were somehow choked off for 20 years, I couldn't be a really good mom to them. So, it's always a balancing act, obviously. And when they were sick, then, it'd be full-time care and no composing, right? So they're always, you're always juggling a million things. But it had to be that. I would also say, I don't think there have been any cultures in human history when it was just a mother and a father taking care of children. Right. There have always been extended families. So the idea that one parent, predominantly the mother, has to be at home with the children all the time in order for them to be emotionally successful growing up is also, I think, a late 20th century myth. And I think it's very healthy for them to have other people that they spend chunks of time with. And I never had family around me. I didn't have, so the children didn't have the opportunity to be with grandparents or aunts and uncles or cousins. So having somebody else in the household was actually a gift to them, to have somebody besides me and their father to spend time with at home. So you need more than one or two adults around, for quality time.
Yeah, something I'm hearing you say that I really try to internalize, and I haven't quite yet, is realizing your limits, and not judging them. But, last year we had a friend visit whose daughter, I think, is like 12 or 13, and they're the coolest parents. She's, an Alexander technique teacher. He's a videographer. Like, they're very artistic and cool. You can talk to them about anything. And their daughter was like really struggling. And the mom said to me, one of the hardest lessons I learned was that I can't give everything that she needs. Sometimes someone else is a better person for her to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really hard, because I think as moms especially, we feel like we have to be everything all the time. And we're not, number one. And we're not going to be the best at everything. And being able to say, like, you know what, I need help here. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. I have no interest in making breakfast in the morning. You want to eat? Let's have some Cheerios. That's it. How do you not judge yourself? Because then you see the Instagram of the mom who's made this like beautiful kale and white bean egg frittata, and you're like, well, I'm not good enough.
She photoshopped that into the picture. I think that I feel like part of what we're all talking about, all of the moms and all the dads and all the parents who are struggling right now, there's this underlying message of care for yourselves, don't judge yourselves, what you're doing is enough. But of course we're all feeling it the whole time. And, I feel like this is one of those times where, like Hannah said, it takes a village, but like, it's actually better a lot of times for the village to be a part of raising your kids, right? Like, even now, my husband and I are doing everything because we are here, and we are the, backup this tutor, and we are the social emotional this person and whatever else. And there are times when we look at each other and say, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Someone who knows this better should be doing this, right? This is doing a disservice both to me and to my kid, right? And we are all in this group of 4 people right now, and it has made it so much more clear that it's those connections outside of this family that strengthen them, that help them learn to interact and come up with their own abilities to deal with struggle. And so that more than ever is what we're trying to teach them, and a lot of that comes from, okay, how do we help you connect with this person and find comfort in someone other than these 3 people, these 4 people, these 6 people. And so, I think, now more than ever, it's important to really start accepting and even reaching out to others and saying, hey, we need a little help. Hey, we need a little something that's different. Can we spice that up for you guys? And you spice that up for us? Let's make that happen. But this is the time to be creative.
I have a question for you because, it's been amazing to see how much you're getting done for ARD and pushing us forward and figuring out how to navigate this transition in the arts world and what does it mean? How are you doing that?
I think at some point it became very clear to me that I needed to, don't judge myself, all that stuff, but there were things in my life that were as important to me as the other things. And in the grand scheme of things, work is supposed to be the most important, get it done, or your kids are supposed to be the most important, or this thing. And I realized, just for my mental health alone, let alone getting through the day, I needed to accept that, listening to some musical theater and having a good cry was just as important as me making that call with the VP and talking through that new effort or whatever it is. And I also realized it was important to show my kids, yes, I am taking it just as importantly as you are to make sure you're on that Zoom at the time you are and you have your materials as it is for me to do that work thing. And so, I've been working very hard to carve out times for myself and say, look, I need to feel like I'm doing a good thing and giving beauty and art back into the world. And so I just need to stop reading this legal brief right now, and I'm going to do this awesome thing with some dancers and make sure that they have a way to get through this just like the rest of us do, or whatever else. I think it's sort of just recategorizing things and reprioritizing things in a way that doesn't have anything to do with what society thinks is important, but has to do with what does this little household think is important, and what's going to get us to the other side, still with a smile on our face, or close to a smile on our face, or the ability to pretend to have a smile on our face. These are the tools we're working with.
The ability and the courage to ask for help, saying, not only acknowledging that you need it or you want it, and then doing something about it, and saying, well, I need these 4 hours. And not feeling like you're taking away from someone else. This is a good time for them to be spending those 4 hours with somebody else so that I can do my job or be creative. But I think vocalizing is something that's hard for me. I'll just be like, oh, and saying, David, I need to do yoga. I need to do my hour of yoga. As women, we are always thinking about other people's needs. And I would love if someone said to me, why don't you go do this? I want you to go do this for yourself. Which is why, on my birthday, I spent the whole day by myself. Because I didn't want to be with anybody. That was my gift.
Good job.
Yeah.
Get your space.
Get my space.
Yeah.
I will say that, one silver lining of all of this definitely has been seeing Raz working from home. And the fact that, that has facilitated so much more time with Lauren and with the babies. It's been nice to see Raz really able to involve himself in that more. And in a more casual way, when we're at home and he's working full time in the office, he gets 20 minutes in the morning with Ori, and then, he's rushing home to make it for our bedtime routine, and he's catching those kittens every day. And now, he can wander out and cook breakfast with Lauren, which, I'm fortunate I have a husband who actually is interested in that. Cheers for me. That added family time, at least for us, has definitely been a bonus.
Oh, yeah. And I think my kids absolutely love being with us all the time, right? They're like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And so, trying to find those beautiful moments of I really am grateful for this, and I really do appreciate this, stuffed in between the this is the most stressful thing ever. We should hold on to those as much as we can because they're meaningful.
Stefania, are you seeing your children at all, or are you guys separated right now because of
No, I mean, via Zoom, yeah, we have regular Zoom, meals and whatnot together. But no, my son is in Brooklyn, and I haven't seen him since the beginning of March when we locked down. And my daughter's currently in Evanston getting an MBA, so she's there with her husband. So no, we FaceTime, a couple of times a week, and then we have a Zoom meeting for all of us once a week. So we stay in touch. But no, I haven't seen them in the flesh. I can't. Everybody's saying, I want to give you a hug. I want to give you a hug. And we don't know when that's going to happen. So it's been tough.
And that must be really hard to really not know. I mean, I know that, that's a topic of conversation amongst myself and a lot of our friends, that we don't know when we'll see our parents again. And then think of it from your perspective too. Like, you don't know when you'll give your children a hug. Like, I don't know.
No, it's not so cute. And my son used to come over regularly for, he'd stop by for dinner or whatever. He would just stop by, and we have a great relationship, and it's all virtual now. So, and the technology is amazing, but it's not a replacement for the real thing. It just isn't, So, it's what it is, but it hasn't been great for that. So,
I wanted to talk a little bit before we wrap up about the piece that we're going to show. I think this was my first collaboration with Stefania, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And
the most different from all the others.
Yeah. And Hannah, this is the first piece we created after you had Ori. And I remember, and Max also was coming to rehearsal a lot. We were rehearsing a lot in Jersey City at the time. And so he would come to rehearsal. But she is a piece, I was extremely injured. I have had a bad back for a long time, but after I had Max, I really overextended myself, partially out of postpartum, partially out of guilt of feeling like I needed to do everything. And I was like, really couldn't move. So a lot of the choreographic process was relying on the dancers to interpret my arm gestures. And, I spoke a lot in rehearsal and gave like a lot of verbal cues. And Stefania came to rehearsal a bunch, and, we couldn't really think of, I couldn't explain what I wanted with the music. I knew I wanted it like intense and some sort of like constant pressure. And I was going through a really rough time. And I think the piece, one of the first things we did when we were starting with the movement was this like being torn in two directions. And there was a lot of like, pull this way, then pull that way, pull this way, pull that way. And you can see that in the movement. And I remember Hannah and I, we had a shared experience about motherhood at that point, but trying to convey that to the other four dancers who hadn't been pregnant, hadn't been mothers, but trying to have them relate to the work and the creation process was really awesome to work with Hannah on that explanation. Because although we had different experiences, we both, we as mothers, you all feel that intensity in the beginning of your child's life. And one day I was pumping at home and I was like, this is what I want. This is the sound. And I recorded it and I brought it to rehearsal. And I remember Hannah was like, I don't know. I don't know if I could, like, it works, but I don't know if I could handle listening to the sound of a pump. I knew you have this sort of visceral reaction to it. And I was like, okay, like, just, like, sit with it for a little bit. And I sent it to Stefania, and I was like, I think this is what I want you to do. Can you make a piece using a breast pump? So maybe, Stefania, talk a little bit about how you felt when I said that. You're like a classical composer, and I was telling you to use an instrument that isn't an instrument.
Well, it was a surprising request, so I tried to rise to the occasion. So one of the things I love about working with you, Ariel, is that you always push me to do something I hadn't thought of doing, and always at first blush it feels like, oh my God, that can't possibly work, and then it's such a great idea that it can work. So it's that tension for me that always is just absolutely wonderful, of going over and beyond my usual practice. I will say about this piece that it's the first piece and possibly maybe the last one which for me is purely electronic, so there are no additional sounds. It's all manipulated from the sounds of the breast pump. And I'd never done that before, and it was a real challenge. Initially, I thought that I would be adding some musical sounds to it, but I remember bringing you a couple of drafts, and you said, no, I really want this to be just the sounds of the breast pump. And that was for me fascinating, both as a compositional practice, because it was so unfamiliar. It was also, a stroll down memory lane, although I don't know if it was a pleasant one, but, remembering my own experiences with the breast pump, sitting there thinking, moo, moo, And to make the situation even more layered or complex, my own mother was dying when I started to write this piece and passed away before the premiere. So there were many, many layers of complexity to this piece. And I'm actually thinking now of revisiting it and seeing if maybe there's a kind of rawness to it, which I think makes it work. But maybe there might be moments when it could be palliated by some kind of addition of some kinds of musical sounds. I'm not quite sure yet, but I've been talking to Ariel about possibly going back and maintaining the overall framework and overall structure of the piece, but adding some layers to it that would mediate the what I would call the rawness of that sound that is the basic material. But it was great fun to do it, and I'm very grateful for getting this partnership going through that.
Well, and it was also very new for me. I had never used music like that.
Right.
All the works before were like this beautiful melodic, and this was not that, but very powerful. Hannah, why don't you talk about your experience with the piece a little bit?
So I think, it was interesting because, I came back, I had a very complicated C-section, and then I was back in the studio 6 weeks post C-section, not wanting to miss out, and, also wanting to really show up for the commitments that I had made, that I had assured everybody, yes, I'll definitely be back. So then it was sort of this amazing gift to be working on a piece that was kind of focused on, what is that struggle like, and where I could really openly talk in the rehearsal process also about what I was going through emotionally. And I remember Ariel, you and I making the solo that I had in the middle, and you just sort of had everybody else leave the room. You were like, you guys go work on this other phrase, like Hannah and I are just going to work on something, because I feel like it was this feeling out of, okay, it's just the two of us who have this shared experience, and you don't have to move. I danced with you for so long that you can talk about what you're seeing in your head, and I can understand that. And just creating the solo out of, for me, it was really around the C-section and the idea of your insides, like literally splitting open and then trying to knit that back together, and that idea. And so I think, for me, in our, 10-year-long artistic collaboration, that was like a very important, very personal moment that we had together. I think, that was sort of the beginning of a new level of expressivity that I think I found in my dancing from being a mother and from feeling, the intense fear that you feel when you think your child is hurt, and the intense love that you feel when you hold your child's hand. It's like everything's a little bit heightened.
For me, I didn't have a C-section, and I think hearing about Hannah's experience, it's not something that people talk about that much. And I think the ugliness and the rawness, they're terrifying experiences that we don't talk about. And I understand to an extent why we don't talk about them, but it's helpful. And it's helpful to process and to recover from them. And I think a lot of my work aims to go there and then come back, and then go there and then come back, and to see how you can do that, and it's safe and you're not alone. And I really felt like in that solo Hannah, she ripped herself open, and then she came back, and you felt her pain, and then you see how she's okay at the end. And for me, and then Danita comes on to the stage and is also there for her. And I think a lot of the piece is also about, as we've been talking about, using your community and not being ashamed to use your community to recover and to support yourself through difficult times, because they're shared experiences and they're normal.
As a mother watching Sheehan, the first time that I heard the music, I remember thinking, having been living in a small bubble of breast pump sounds for 14 months for one kid, then for the next kid, this number of years later, there is a rawness in it that is mechanical and it's not melodic, and it's surprising the first time you hear it. But part of what I think is so beautiful about experiencing the music along with this sort of transformative dance of a mother just sort of opening herself up and having everything sort of fall apart and then pull it back together, the music does become this very meaningful, beautiful, melodic in its own way, running background to this experience of motherhood. And I find that to be both very impactful but also very resonant. As a mother, you're sort of physically in it. You feel like you're in it both because of the music and because you're experiencing this with just this one person, this one other mother on the stage, and it's like I feel myself in that. So beautiful piece.
All right, I think, do we have anything else we want to add?
This was great.
This was great.